Martel here from the OEI. Just had an athlete that came into me with a internal labral issue on his right hip with an osteophyte formation that didn't let him go into, abduction of his hip, and he really felt it in his throwing motion. And one of the things that he told me, he's a college pitcher in our area, and one of the things that his coaches wanted him to work on was his stride length. And my whole point of doing this website and in creating the program was to raise the level of education and improve the quality of intervention for throwing athletes. The injury rate for athletes is astronomically high. It's getting higher because there's an incomplete understanding of how many throws athletes should throw, but I think it's an overuse syndrome. But with an athlete, you have to assess hamstring flexibility and their hip abduction and internal rotation, and that comes from a movement screen that allows you to identify anything that could prohibit that athlete from acquiring the positions that the coach wants him to go into. So this is an athlete, you watch him throw, and then I watched him throw after he'd been through therapy, and he had video of him throwing before, and the change in his throwing motion was what ended up causing the pain. So he may have had an osteophyte formation or a labral issue in his hip, or it could have been the result of trying to increase his stride length, and then he was ending up in a lumbar extension position, which is an inefficient position. It causes instability, and then he was releasing the ball a foot and a half further back because he was trying to reach his stride so far. So everything's connected. If you're going to sit there and try and change someone's mechanics and not assess them and look thoroughly at how their body moves, what kind of structure they have, and then incorporate in their program some sort of strategic flexibility program or hip mobility program in that specific example, then what ends up happening is there's complete disarray, and that's the whole point of evaluating an athlete in the first place. So I get a ton of guys that go, there's a ton of pitching instructors out there, and well-intentioned individuals, but it's so important to understand the entirety of the situation, and I often find that it's not. And I just want to try and address that. And hopefully, if somebody reads this blog, which I'm hoping people do, or looks at this blog, they can look at it and say, okay, maybe I need to incorporate that in my program. Maybe I need to contact us and figure out what to do, or send us video. So, it's important that you look at the entire picture before you just say, okay, I'm going to try and change this with throwing athletes' mechanics.